Welcome. Let's take a look at the topic of tax on savings interest. I'm calling this one a modern twist. Why am I calling it a modern twist? Well, because a modern twist on this means that now this has become a problem for people. Now, Shawbrook Bank, good bank, they've done some research into this recently. Everyone has some ulterior motives when they do research because they're pinning or they're marketing their deposit accounts. You see, they're a retail bank. So they did this research which talks about they reckon about 3 million people in the UK are going to be having to pay income tax on their savings interest in the next sort of few years, which is amazing because last year it was a fraction of that number. The amount of government money that they're making from tax on interest savings is just going through the roof, So what's this about? Well, their research shows that if you've got a deposit account or savings account, let's just put a little pass book here. When I was in the building society trade many years ago, we used to have pass books, but it's all gone now, isn't it? So you've got a deposit account with some money in it. Now their research shows that with interest rates going up, of course, if you want to pay tax, which is a bit tough, no one wants to pay tax. But anyway, if you had 18 grand in there, £18,000, that's the amount in your deposit account, by the way, and you earn interest of 6% per annum, and remember interest nowadays is all gross, then that's going to take you above the personal allowances we'll look at in a second for you, and you're going to have to pay tax on it. How bad is that? You have to do a self-assessment tax return online, don't need paper, and you're going to have to pay some tax. Now, when the rates of interest were about 1% last year on deposit accounts, even less than that, you needed over £100,000 in your deposit account to get anywhere near paying tax. So it doesn't need a lot of rates going up for you to start paying tax. So let's do a technical recap for you on all of this just to make sure we're okay. Because this is good for your CPD, it's good for your, obviously for your CMAT. If you're studying CMAT 1, this is essential. First of all, savings tax is a tax you pay on any interest that you earn. That's the whole point. And you're taxed on this, less the allowances we look at in a second for you, you're taxed on this at your marginal rate. Now be careful of that. Now marginal rate, of course, means, I had somebody email me the other day, so what's marginal rate mean, Paul? So there's me assuming that everybody knows what marginal rate is. Now here's my famous little buckets that I use for tax calculations, and this bucket represents the amount of your income from all sources, usually your salary and stuff like that. So your income goes in there. Now when you put your income in the bucket, you've then got to work out the tax. Now for most people, they have a personal allowance, which is nil. That's just over the 10 grand mark, isn't it? So that eats up quite a bit of your salary where there's nil tax to pay. But then you have a great big basic rate band, as we call it, basic rate band, and you can look at the tax sheets for that one. So that's sort of 40,000 pounds of your salary, which is charged at 20%. Then you have a high rate band, which is even more, of course, high rate band. Now that's where 40% tax gets charged. We know that, don't we? And then, if you're unlucky enough, you have an additional rate band on anything above that. So that means that people pay tax on their salary and stuff. Now, when you earn money, salary, profits, whatever, it goes in first. And that creates your marginal rate of tax. So, for example, if somebody was earning like megabucks from their salary, and their salary was up here, let's just put their salary in there. Yeah. So say that was something like 60,000, which is not megabucks, is it? It's what MPs earn, isn't it? Anyway, so that person has a marginal tax. Their marginal tax rate is 40% because they're in the high rate band. Now, savings interest, the amount of money you earn from interest on your savings, gets added to your marginal rate. So this poor dude here, she'd have to pay 40% tax on her savings interest. That's not to be sniffed at, is it? Now, the government do give you allowances. They give you a personal savings allowance. Let's just put that over here, called a PSA, a personal savings allowance. And there's different figures, but at the moment it's a grand for basic rate taxpayers, and it's £500 for high rate taxpayers. But check the figures in your tax sheet. For additional rate taxpayers, remember this is at your marginal rate. Additional rate taxpayers, you don't get none, because these people are loaded so they don't need it, do they? I'm getting very socialist in my views, aren't I? So, as you can appreciate, you can earn quite a lot of interest without paying tax. But that's the point about this 18 grand thing. 18,000 at 6% breaches the £1,000. Even less, of course, if you're a higher rate taxpayer. And anything above that gets added to your marginal rate. So, say, for example, this person earned, I don't know, say, for example, they earned £2,000 in savings tax. Sorry, in savings interest, I should say. Now that less than £1,000 or £500 for higher rate taxpayer, that gets added to their marginal rate there. So you see the colour coding of that, and that gets taxed at 40%. That's how it works, and there's going to be a lot of people having to pay that. Now, lower earners, people that don't earn any other money from salary or profit, say for example they earn all their money from savings, they actually get quite a bit of a boost really, because lower earners get a starting band of £5,000. You've probably read about that. They got this £5,000 savings interest allowance, which effectively adds another 500 quid to their nil band, because personal allowance of course is nil. They also get the savings allowance of £5,000. There you go, let's put that in there for you. You don't need to do any calculations for that, but essentially somebody's not earning any money at all from any other sources. They don't have a marginal rate, they're nil. When they work out how much they earn from savings, because that's their only form of income, you get an extra £5,000 of a savings allowance. Then you add your personal allowance, so they get 17, 18 odd £1,000 of tax-free pay from their interest that they earn. But when they breach that, they have to start paying tax. So that's just a little bit of an update for you on the tech side. So what does this all mean? Well, as a mortgage advisor, probably not a lot really, because you probably don't really ask questions about people's interests on their savings. If you're a financial advisor, or if you want to pass people on to a financial advisor, you'll be thinking ISAs, because of course cash ISAs are tax free. So although this person's earning £2,000 in interest, and they got say £500 personal savings allowance, so 1,500 quid, they're going to have to pay 40%. It's quite a lot of money. That's quite a lot of tax. So if they put this deposit into an ISA, so say they transfer that to a cash ISA, there you go, then they wouldn't have to pay no tax. How cool is that? Cash ISAs have been pretty irrelevant recently for the tax, because again, people never really pay tax, but now interest rates are higher. The problem with cash ISAs is the interest rate on them is quite low. Martin Lewis was on this at the weekend. He was saying that people should just transfer to normal accounts because it pays a higher rate of interest, but interest rate changes. The other thing to think about is pension contributions, because a pension contribution will effectively take you below, won't it? Because if you put like 18 grand deposit account, you could, if you worked out the numbers, you could put that into a pension. Obviously you can't withdraw it until you're really old, 57, 56, or even later than that. But that, of course, would then reduce your marginal rate even more, because effectively pension contributions reduce your income really for tax purposes. That's where you get tax relief. So therefore you pay no tax. So a pension contribution would not be a bad shout here to get rid of that tax band, if the person's willing to put their money into pension. But obviously you've got to do a proper fact find on that one, look at their risk, their time horizon and all sorts of things as well, because that's what financial advisors do. The other thing is an offset mortgage. I told you there'd be something for mortgage advisors. Let's just put that in a different colour for you, put that in red. So you've got this situation, say for example, customer's got a few grand in the bank, probably more than 18. Look at an offset mortgage, because an offset mortgage is a pretty cool thing, because it's a mortgage that's charged at the variable rate, maybe a tracker, so it's an up and down rate, it's not fixed. But what it does is it charges you interest per month on your net mortgage. Obviously you have a mortgage, but you have a savings account attached to it. So it charges you interest on the difference between the two. It takes your mortgage and it takes off your savings money. It doesn't pay you any interest on your savings, but what it does, it stops your mortgage from being charged too much. So say, for example, you had a mortgage of £100,000 and you had savings of 18, they'd only charge you £82,000 mortgage or interest on £82,000 of your mortgage. And if your mortgage rate is 7 or 8%, tracker, which it would be, maybe you're doing it temporary until rates calm down. That's not a bad shout, offset mortgage in these cases. I tell you what, it makes you think, doesn't it, about the CMAT 1 textbook? Because people moan at me and say, well, all this stuff, Paul, it's irrelevant for mortgage advisors. No, I get it, but it's not. When you look at it properly, you do the proper job, and you do a proper fact find, you start to look at issues around the client situation, and then you can talk to them about this, and an offset mortgage suddenly becomes quite a useful thing to do. Mortgage advising, financial advisors, is not just a simple thing of finding the right rate, bish, bash, bang, which it has been maybe the last few years. You've got to look for different angles now. You've got to give the customer a decent outcome for their time. That's what it's about now. You're charging a fee. You've got to give them a proper fact find. Anyway, that's tax on savings interest, a modern twist. Hope that's been useful. Bye.